Hello, everyone, and
Great.
welcome back to the third and final part of this week's set of videos for Latin Club. Well done if you made it this far, and you'll certainly not regret persevering until now, as we have a real treat in store today, which will always, from now on, be the last part of our videos. So make sure you always watch to the end if you can. Before then, I hope you've enjoyed Tiberius and I talking about the myth and labours of the all-time great Hercules. And perhaps some of you might have even had a chance to draw your own pictures of Hercules, perhaps doing a 13th labour of your own choice. Either way, do let us know if you have, and we will definitely give you a special mention in our next video if you would like. Anyway, for this video, Tiberius and I will be reading a beautiful extract which follows on from Hercules' 12 labours. The story is told by the Roman poet Ovid, who lived in the 1st century BC. He produced a wonderful book called the Metamorphoses, which is a huge collection of weird and wonderful stories all about the theme of transformation. After all, that's what a metamorphosis is. Our story today is called Achelous and Hercules. Here's a bit of background to it. We have the king of Calydon, who wishes to offer his daughter Deianira, his daughter Deianira, to the strongest man in the land. But men must fight it out between each other to see who comes out the strongest and who will therefore win himself a bride. Achelous, he's the river god, was by far the strongest man around, so it seemed. Since he was the river, he could change it to whatever shape or form he desired. While Tiberius and I take it in turns to read the story, try and think back to all the mythical monsters and their shapes you have encountered in the 12 Herculean labours so far. But here's the big question. Will Hercules come out on top this time? Well, let's wait and see. Achelous and Hercules. Why are you sighing, and why is the horn on your forehead broken? Theseus asked Achelous. The god of the river, whose unkempt hair was crowned with a garland of reeds, thus made his reply.
What a dismal gift to demand! Who'd willingly give an account of his own defeats? But I'll tell you the story from start to finish. The shame of losing the battle was less than the glory of fighting it. Falling to such a distinguished man is a great consolation. Perhaps you have heard the name of the beautiful Deianira, whose hand in marriage was jealously sought by an army of suitors, including myself. As soon as I'd entered her father's palace, "Son of Partheon," I said, "I ask to marry your daughter." Hercules said the same, and the others withdrew in our favour. My rival pleaded that Jove was his father, and mentioned his glorious labours, the dangerous tasks he'd been set by his stepmother Juno. I urged in reply, "What disgrace for a god to give way to a mortal." The hero was not yet a god. "Here am I, the lord of the river which winds its way through your lands, not urging my suit as a stranger dispatched from alien shores, but as one of your fellow countrymen, part of your kingdom. I say that it shouldn't be held against me. That royal Juno does not detest me, and I am not sentenced to endless labours at her command. Now, son of Alcmena, as for your boast that Jupiter happens to be your father, you're either a liar or else you must be illegitimate. The truth of your claim depends on your mother's adultery. Make up your mind then. Either the story's a fiction or else your birth was a scandal." Hercules watched over me as I was making my case with a glowering look in his eyes. His anger was blazing. He couldn't control it. And then he retorted,
My hand has more power to persuade than my tongue. I'll fight you to win the debate, so long as I win in fighting.
And forward he stalked, looking fierce. As I had been speaking so boldly, I hadn't the face to retreat. My garments of green were discarded. I put my arms and holding my hands crooked round at the ready in front of my chest. I was all prepared to wrestle with Hercules. First he gathered some dust in his hollowed palms and sprinkled it over me. Next I covered his body with yellow gold sand. Then he lunged at my neck and my nimble legs in succession, or else he pretended to do so and went for each part of my body. My defense was my solid weight, so all his attempts came to nothing. I stood like a massive rock, assailed by the roaring waves in a storm but never dislodged, secure in its own great bulk. For one brief moment we moved apart, then returned to the battle, standing fast in our tracks, determined not to give ground. My foot was now touching his, my body was thrust well forward, his fingers were gripped in mine and our foreheads were forced together. I tell you, we could have been two strong bulls ferociously butting to win the prize of the sleekest cow in the whole of the pasture, with all of the herd looking on in a flurry of terror, uncertain which one of the two will win the victory of such great lordship. 3 times the magnificent Hercules unsuccessfully tried to thrust me back as I pressed against him. At last, at the 4th attempt, he managed to break my hold and to shake me off. I was thrown off balance, and then, I'm determined to tell you the truth, he rapidly turned me round and clung to my back with his full weight. Believe me, Theseus, I'm not inventing the details to win myself glory. I felt I was being crushed by the weight of a mountain. But still, with a mighty effort, I slipped my arms, all dripping with sweat, under his and wrenched my limbs from his bear-like hug. While I panted for breath, before I recovered my strength, he was on me again, with his hands at my throat, and that was the end of the battle. He forced me down to my knees, and I felt the sand in my teeth. Since I was weaker in manly strength, I turned to my own arts, slithering out of the hero's grasp in the form of a long snake. My body was looped in sinuous coils, and I flickered my forked tongue, hissing like fury, but Hercules laughed and made fun of my magic, dealing with
Dealing with snakes is a task I used to perform in my cradle. You may surpass other snakes, Achilles, but really, a single serpent is hardly a threat when compared with the Hydra of Lerna. That monster blossomed and throve on its wounds. When one of its numerous heads was cut off, it always recovered by sprouting another 2 heads in its place. Destruction caused it to grow as it put forth branches of vipers sprung from the carnage. But I, great Hercules, mastered the creature and cauterized each neck as I lopped it. What do you think will happen to you? You are merely disguised as a snake in dubious form, with weapons not your own by nature.
He then proceeded to shackle the top of my neck in his fingers, helplessly choking as if my throat had been gripped by pincers. I struggled to tear my jaws away from his strangling thumbs, but once again I was beaten. I still had a third shape left, so I changed once more to a savage bull and returned to the fray. He attacked from the left and clasped my muscular neck in his arms. I then dashed forward, but Hercules followed and pulled against me. Soon he had forced my hard horns down till they caught in the soil, and had laid me flat on top of the sand. But he still wasn't satisfied. Grasping one of my horns in his brutal hand, he broke it, tough as it was, and tore it away from my forehead, leaving me maimed.
The horn was filled by the naiads with fruit and with fragrant flowers, and thus made holy enriches the spirit of plenty. The river god ended his tale, and one of his servants, a nymph, attired as Diana, the goddess of hunting, with hair spread over her shoulders, came forward, displaying the horn of plenty, and carrying all the choicest fruits of the autumn to serve to the guests for the second course. Dawn broke. As the sun's first rays were striking the mountain peaks, the young men went on their way. They decided no longer to wait till the river was calmly flowing in peace and the flood had completely subsided. The country god Achilles then hid his face and plunged his head with its wrenched off horn in the midst of its own waves. I hope you enjoyed that, and that was a little story from Ovid's Metamorphoses. You can see from my background on my screen that we have a little a pot from ancient Greece, and it's probably made out of clay. And what you can see on the orange, if I move back a little bit, is you can see Achilles, the river god, on the ground, and Heracles wrestling him. And you might also be able to notice the river god's horns. And obviously, if you've read this story, if you listen to it carefully, you will notice that the horn that Hercules is holding on Achilles' head is the one that he snapped off, and that was the horn that that I just made allusion to at the very end of the tale. So that's nice. I think that's a nice way that art, pottery, vases, and stories just go together quite nicely to inform each other. So this probably fits into my conclusion. I really urge you, if you can, to do your own drawings. Send it over to us, whatever you've done. We'll definitely give them a shout out to everyone who sends it in. And be creative, stay safe, and we hope to see you on the other side. See you next week.
Bye later, everyone.